Hi, welcome to another video. This is amazing. No, it's not a commode. It's an Eddystone 358. I don't know whether it's 358X. I've only just been reading up about this. Only got this the other day. It says here B34, receiver B34. It covers, I think, 40 kilohertz to 30 or 31 megs, or whatever, 32 megs. I'm not quite sure. So there we are, RF gain, audio gain there, BFO, where's the BFO there? What's that, bandwidth, or well, selectivity, tone. The speaker, here we are. There's a transformer in there. God, that's a heavy thing. This weighs a ton. The speaker's 600 ohms, the output for the speaker. That's why the transformer's in there to match it to the 3 ohm speaker. There's a meter which seems to read the anode current on all the valves, which is good. Speaker on off. AGC on and off, I think that one is. There's no band switch, no wave change switch, because what you do is you open the lid and you plug in coils. Look at that. Goodness me, there's one in there already. So you plug these in and it's written, actually the writing is coming off these. This is range something or other, something to 150 kilohertz. And you get, hang on. Everything's so heavy. Oh, there we are. The one that's missing obviously is in the radio at the moment. So these are the different bands that it covers, different ranges. They all seem to work. Goodness me. Oh. So it's quite a beast. There's the power supply there. I don't know whether that had a cover over it or not. From pictures I've seen on the internet, there are different types of power supplies. Some had covers on. I don't know. That must have had something over it. So you've got a lead with an octal plug that goes into the power supply. The mains lead is this old, looks like the lead on an iron, you know, the old cotton covered stuff, so that wants replacing. Bit of rust, but this is going to be a good restoration project. It's got octal valves. I think it's 1941. I read somewhere these were manufactured between 41 and 47 or something. So there we are, and as you can see, the tuning, this is lovely. Look at that. Absolutely. Absolutely amazing. It's a lovely piece of kit. I got this, let's turn it off. Chap I worked with in the radio and TV shop when I first started as an apprentice back in the 60s. This chap worked there. He was, you know, one of the engineers there, a few years older than me. Anyway, sadly, he passed away suddenly recently. I hadn't seen him for decades. Anyway, it's a long story, but his nephew found me and established that yes, I was the chap that worked with him. So I got this. He gave me this. So it's nice to have this, not only as part of my ever-growing communication receiver collection, but because this belonged to you know, my friend and the chap I worked with in back in the 60s in the workshop. So yeah, it's nice to have something of his. So there we are. Rather nice, that is. The only trouble is with these things is the weight. It really is heavy. I mean, my back isn't in the best of sort of health anyway, and if I start lifting, I mean, it absolutely weighs a ton. I mean, as I said, the speaker alone, that's a metal box. Everything was built like a battleship in those days. I mean, this steel front, I mean, look at it, it's ever so thick bit of sheet steel. There's a bit of rust coming through. Really, this wants, it really wants fully restoring, like the cabinet and the front panel all taking off, you know, rubbing down, sandblasting or whatever, and respraying. That would look rather nice. because all this will come off, of course. You know, the meter and everything, these plates will come off. I did see a chap on the internet, he's put some photos on, and it looks like new. Lovely, really nice. So there we are. I'm after a CR100, a Marconi CR100. Not quite as big as this, not quite as heavy. There's one I'm keeping an eye on in Brighton, which is only about, what, 10 miles east of me. So keeping an eye on that collection only. I mean, you couldn't post anything. Well, I suppose you could. I don't know. So there we are. That's the Eddystone, what is it, 358 or B34, used on the ships. It says here Admiralty pattern. So used on the ships back in the 40s. I also read somewhere it was something made to order or something, or made to private order. I can't remember what I read now. So anyway, if anyone's got any info on it, perhaps you'd let me know. Any further information. Just that lid there, I mean, that's what's that? That's sort of a piece of cast iron. Goodness me. It's no wonder it all weighs so much. And the coils, as I say, they plug in the top there. I mean, these alone are heavy. Yeah, the chap that restored his, the pictures, he took all these apart, cleaned it all up. These holes here are for aligning, you know, RF, mixer, oscillator, all that sort of thing. I think that's what these three are. There's oscillator, mixer and RF stage. Someone in this one, when I restore this, I'll make videos of sort of like now, during and after restoration. I don't know when I'm going to get round to it because it's a lengthy job and I'm very busy with customers' repairs, but I will do it. Anyway, what we used to do on the CR100, the RF amplifier, take out the octal valve, which was the RF amp. I think in this case it was an EF39, I read somewhere. I haven't got the manual on this yet. Then mount a little B9A valve base, get an octal valve, break the glass off so you end up with just the octal plug. Mount a B9A valve base on that. Wire it through, obviously, all to the correct pins. And I'm not sure what this is, but someone's done that, a B9A valve. I think on the CR100 we used, was it an EF183, EF184, something like that. And you don't need to do any modifications to the circuit at all, it just plugs straight in. And I do remember I made up this little contraption, put my EF184 in it, and I had the Marconi somewhere on shortwave listening to a station, took the octal valve out, put my EF184 in, and what a difference. RF gain, what a difference. Signals came right up. So that was worth doing. And of course it doesn't permanently modify anything, you don't have to remove the octal valve base or anything like that. Just make a neat job, as someone's done here. That's quite a neat job. I won't pull that out. Oh, there's the... Oh yes, now in this one there's the top cap. That I don't know where that goes. Someone, so of course the EF39's got a top cap, hasn't it, for the grid. So yeah, there must be a slight... You've obviously got to take a wire from the top cap to one of the pins on the B9A base underneath. Anyway, there we are. A nice little modification. It doesn't alter anything on, it can be put back as it was within minutes. This is the Eddystone I've discovered 358X. X because it has a crystal filter. I've only owned this for 3 days now. Yeah, 3 days. And there we are. Okay, so I've only owned it for 3 days, so I'm still sort of finding my way around it. I've got it out of the case. I'll just show you the case. This is amazing. The cabinet. Oh, that. Goodness me. There's the commode lid. I mean, this is incredible. This is cast iron, I think. The case actually weighs... Oh. The case weighs more than the receiver. Well, not quite, but not far off. So, plug-in coils needed some attention. Yes, so it's got a crystal filter, which is nice. What I've done so far, the power supply, I'll show you this, the power supply cable from the receiver to the power supply was this kind of braided screened lead, 3 wires inside, rubber covered, and this is all, it's like breaking up, so you cut yourself on that, and it's lost all its flexibility. Ouch. It's so that had to go. I don't like changing things, but I've put a piece of mains lead, 3-core, between the receiver and the power supply. The heater current is only 1.4 amps, so ordinary bit of mains lead is fine for that. Or I like to keep things original, but I couldn't use that huge chunk of screen lead. It's lethal because the rubber insulation also inside was breaking up. So that's that. The power supply I've discovered also is, I thought it was original with just the cover missing, but it's been home built. It's homemade, or home brew as they say, and built very nicely, I must say. So that's nothing to do with that. I've cleaned it up, checked it all over, the capacitors are fine, that's all working fine. The plug-in coils, I'll show you a close-up in a minute. I'll show you underneath the chassis and in the top and the rest of it. The plug-in coils, as I've got, I think I showed you this in the last video. The box, goodness me, 10 bands, 10 ranges. Don't need to go to the gym if you own one of these. Yes, you've got aerial, here we are, aerial, mixer and oscillator. They plug in. The oscillator socket on here, one of the pins, isn't that good, so I've got to do something with the oscillator socket. It's, yeah, you have to wiggle this around a bit to make contact. So that's something I'm not quite sure what to do. I don't want to modify it too much, but it seems that the socket, you can see underneath, as you'll see in a minute, someone's bent the sort of metal. It's like a banana plug socket, I suppose, about that size. Someone's bent it in the hope that it'll make better contact, which it doesn't. So that's that. As I said before also in the other video, someone's put an EF183 valve in there. That was an EF39 RF amp. What they've done is what we used to do in the early days on the CR100, exactly the same, an EF183. Get an old octal valve, break the glass off so you've got the octal plug, fix a B9A base on top of that so you can plug your new arrangement straight into where the EF39 went. The only thing is the top cap will have to then be wired to the correct pin on the B9A base. So that brings up the gain a lot. And of course, to put it back to original EF39, simply unplug that and plug in the EF39, job done. So there's no permanent modification there. One thing that has struck me is the hugeness of this. I mean, the cabinet is, why is it all so big? I think this could have been half the size. I don't know why it's so big and so heavy. It's absolutely humongous. But look at all this wasted space. I mean, most of the cabinet, most of this in here is just air. Look at the wasted space. You could have built the power supply in here. There's plenty of room there for a mains transformer. But I did think of doing that, but I don't want to modify it. So, there we are. Yes, I'll show you underneath in a minute. Quite a few of the capacitors had been changed, but I've changed the rest of them. There are 2 that I can't get to under a little Paxilin panel. I'm going to have to try and get that off to change the last 2 capacitors. But it's all working well. I've had a quick check of the IF alignment. That's okay, just brought that up slightly. The IF frequency, what was it, I can't remember now, 570 kilohertz, I can't remember. The only thing is with the plug-in coils for each band, it's a little bit odd, because you've got, what have we got here? B, C, D and E, which is which is fine, but the coils are A, B, C, D, E, F, G, up to J, H, I, J, and you've got to sort of work out where you are, which is a little bit odd. I suppose the thing is, this was used by the Navy apparently on the ships back in the 40s. I suppose the thing is, you're not going to change bands every few minutes, so you're not continually unplugging and plugging in coils. If, for example, you're near to the UK and you want to contact, I don't know, Portishead or some, UK Coast Guard station or whatever they contacted, their own bases, I suppose, Southampton or whatever, you'd use the lower frequencies, such as, I don't know what the ship, the trawler band, 2 to 3 megs. If you're in the Channel, you'd use that to talk to Nightingale radio or whatever. As you get further out into the Atlantic or wherever you're going, you go higher in frequency, up to, I forget the marine bands, up 20 something megs, 22 megs was there one, somewhere around 18 or 19 megs. So you're not changing the coil packs every few minutes, so I suppose that's not too bad. It's just a bit of a palaver. Presumably that wooden box there's a kind of handle thing on the front, presumably that was in a drawer under the operating desk or wherever. Okay, I'm going to show you underneath the chassis and on top in a minute. It's all rather nice. Not sure whether to respray this front panel yet, or the cabinet, the case. I don't know that it's worth doing that. This probably will just clean up. So there we are, let's have a look underneath. Right, this is the underside of the chassis on the Eddystone 358X. I know it's an X now, I've been looking into it. X is crystal filter. It's got a 2-pole crystal filter. There's the 3-gang tuning capacitor in there, variable capacitor. The first thing that you notice with this receiver is there's nothing underneath. Well, there is something, obviously, but because of the plug-in coil units, these that plug in on top, all the coils and trimming capacitors and the rest of it that would normally be in here along a huge sort of shaft here with the wave change switch wafers all along it. Of course, none of that is fitted in the radio. You plug in the coils to change bands. So what we've got here, RF amplifier. Now I want to show you this, where is it? Someone had taken out the EF39 that plugs in their octal valves, and they've made up this to an EF183 onto an octal base. So EF183, that's the top cap. So the wire that went to the top of the EF39 now goes there. I've taken this out. Basically I had a lot of problems with this receiver. I'll tell you about it in a minute. So at the moment there's the original EF39 back in there. There's the oscillator. Someone's changed all these resistors. A lot of the capacitors have been changed. Here are the IF, can't see where we are from this side, but IF amplifier, 2 EF39s, IF amplifiers. The detector, which is this one, this one, audio output here, yeah, a couple of IF amps. So it's all pretty easy to get to. It's quite nice to work on underneath because there's so much room. There, if you can see that in the picture, yep, the audio output transformer. It's a bit strange this, the audio output is 600 ohms. So you need a 600 ohm speaker, which I haven't got. So what someone has done in the back of the loudspeaker, they fitted a transformer 600 I think to 3 ohms, so that gets around that problem. What else can I show you here? Here is the aerial and earth socket which go on the back of the cabinet. That sort of comes out with the radio. So one thing I had noticed when I first started using this, I thought that there wasn't a lot of RF there wasn't a lot of gain, it wasn't very sensitive. The chap had been using it by just connecting an aerial to this red one, the aerial connection. This other one you have to earth, you have to take it to earth, because this you can use for an unbalanced aerial, as I'm doing now, aerial wire and take the other one to earth, or a balanced aerial, in which case you would use both these terminals for the balanced line coming in from the aerial. So in the past, normally you'd strap that. Well, the chap hadn't strapped it, so the RF, the sensitivity would have been way down because of that. So that's that. The HT, I've downloaded the manual, and it says the HT wants to be about 180 volts, 175 to 180. But when I checked this, it was 200 and, what was it, nearly 280, so it was 100 volts too high. Now the power supply is a homemade one, and I had a look at that. There's a large resistor underneath that someone has bridged across with a piece of wire. So I took the wire off, and the HT is down to it's about 200 at the moment, which is fine. So again, whoever did that in the first place, I suppose this was in the days before the internet, and if you didn't have the manual, then you wouldn't know that the HT is meant to be 180. So I suppose someone checked it and thought, well, that's low, normally HT is 250 minimum, if not 300. So I've put the HT as it should be. There was one major problem I'll come to in a minute, which was the AGC didn't work. That really was a nightmare to put right. But before doing that, you don't need the AGC on to do the alignment. It's best to switch it off, which you can here with a switch, or disable it. So I went through the whole alignment, did it all properly. Each coil that you plug in, that's got its RF mixer oscillator here. So I've been through, I think I've got a couple left to do, but I did all the IF alignment. As I say, it's got a crystal filter, it's got a BFO, which is remarkably stable. Listening to some single sideband stations, it is remarkably stable, which is good. There's next to no drift. I mean, obviously there is some drift, but next to no drift at all, which is very good. So yeah, I basically did everything. Most of the capacitors have been changed. I changed the few that hadn't. A lot of dry joints. That was from the factory when it was assembled, by the look of it. A lot of these original wires here, where they got onto the tags, they'd been soldered, but the wire was loose inside a sort of a hole in the solder, so it hadn't taken properly. Sorted that lot out. It works extremely well. But the AGC, I just want to mention this dreadful AGC problem. Basically, I had no AGC volts on the rail, so I checked the components, the high value resistors, the capacitors, everything was fine, but something was dragging the volts down, and I couldn't find it. I looked on the circuit, I changed all the relevant components. I couldn't find what was draining the AGC volts down. I was about to discard the AGC circuit and start with the diode load resistor and make my own. Take a new wire around, decoupling capacitors, the high value resistors, take it to each valve and do it that way. When I happened to notice, I don't know whether you can see here, this is the AGC on off switch here. Right behind it, you can see it now, is that resistor. From basically what the on off switch does, it earths the AGC rail, just takes it to chassis. This resistor here, when I remove that, the AGC volts came right up and it worked perfectly. This is connected somewhere in here, very difficult to get in there, to the automatic noise limiter, which is this switch here. Now, on the circuit I've got, there's no mention of the noise limiter. So of course on the circuit, this resistor isn't shown. and it was hidden. I won't put it back, but it was hidden right in there. I couldn't see it. Anyway, nearly 3 hours it took me, which is ridiculous for what should be a simple AGC fault. Nearly 3 hours I was having to trace things around, find out what was going on. In the end, it was purely by luck that I saw that in there. So we now have AGC. It all works very well. I'm very pleased with it. I'm looking forward to getting it back into the cabinet, because it's a huge thing, and I want it off the bench. I've got customers' radios to repair, which I've been doing, but I've got this in the way. Anyway, put that right, and it's now just about ready to go back in its box. I do just want to sort out this business here. I've just got to check where this capacitor, sorry, the resistor goes, because I want the noise limiter to work. It's there, I want it original. So yeah, that's it. That's the underside. I'll just show you the top in a second. That's the underside of the Eddystone 358X. Right, not a particularly good view, but this is the top. There's the RF amp, or mixer oscillator here. Can you see that one there? Yeah, just about. IF amp, detector, audio amplifier, BFO. There's the BFO, and it's a little unit there which is separate. So that's that plug-in coil. There's the meter. The meter. These are the meter shunts. The meter connects to each. It's in the supply to each valve anode with a shunt. So basically, all the meter does is it shows you anode current, and it's just got normal in the center of the meter. There's a sort of normal window, so you can see that the valve's operating more or less correctly. There are lots of room, bit of dust, got to do a final clean, then back into its cabinet. So that's not a lot to see this side, apart from again lots of space, lots of air, and cast iron and huge lumps of steel plate. Okay, that's the top side. So there we are, that's the Eddystone 358X communications receiver. Nice bit of kit. Shame about the nightmare of an AGC fault I had. If it wasn't for that, this would have been finished a long time ago. Hence the change of t-shirt. I haven't just been and changed it. I made the first part of this video several days ago. There we are. The thing is, as I said, in the manual I've downloaded, it covers the 358, the 35X, and I think 400 or whatever. No mention of the automatic noise limiter. And I did notice a few other discrepancies between the 358X circuit diagram and the actual 358X receiver. So you've got to be a little bit careful. I was searching also for the components. There's like a drawing, badly photocopied drawing. You're looking for something like R38, I think it was. On the drawing you can't read what it says, so you've got to find it. And of course it's changed position anyway since the circuit was drawn and the receiver was built. It's changed anyway, so it all did take time. It's where are we now? Just above 6 megs. There we are. Not meant to listen to that. That's a pirate station where every Saturday they're on the air, it seems. Just above 6 megs somewhere. Where's this dial? Yes, according to this, 6.1. There we are. So illegal to listen to that apparently, so I'll listen to that when you've gone in a minute. Happy days. That's it. Great, thanks for watching. Hope you've enjoyed it. Hope it wasn't too boring. I'm now going to put this back in the cabinet, get it off the bench, and answer the phone. Bye bye for now.